wa salam Allah wa Rasulullah. This is our series entitled The Signs of the Last Hour. And I like to apologize, first of all, for my voice. As you guys can see, I've caught a cold. And it's, standing in the way of my voice being normal. But inshallah, I'm going to try to do this class because a lot of you have been waiting for it. And also, it's a very important class because learning about the signs of the last hour, many of those signs are already present. And by us familiarizing ourselves with those signs, we will find that most of the signs are already here. And we should be able to look at the signs for what they mean and then work on trying to change ourselves for the better. And let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen for tonight's discussion. Let me share the screen so everyone can see. So this is our second session of the signs of the last hour. And today what we're going to do is speak about the trials and the tribulations that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us of. We have a hadith where one of the companions tells us that the people used to come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ask him about good things. But this companion was different. He said he used to ask him about things that other people didn't want to talk about. And the reason why he would ask them about these things is because he wanted to know how to deal with himself under those situations. So one day he asked the Prophet, he said, "O Prophet of Allah, we were lost in ignorance and evil. And then Allah brought Islam to us. And Islam is something good. Will we ever encounter evil like we did before Islam?" And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam answered him and said, "Yes." He said, "And there will be some good that will come after that evil. But it will be tainted. The good will be tainted." And this companion asked, "How will that good be tainted?" He said, "Well, there will appear people who will become imams, and they will be leading the people away from a path, leading them away to a path that is different than mine. You will see good in these people, and you will see bad in these people. But the people will focus more on the good than the bad, not knowing that these people are leading them away from me, away from the Sunnah, away from the way I am teaching you to practice Islam." And when the Prophet said that, the person asked, "Well, will there be some evil after that?" The Prophet said, "Yes, some people will be standing and calling people to what they call Islam, but instead they will be calling the people to the gates of hell. And whoever listens to these people and responds to their call, they will be thrown into the hellfire." These two groups of people are already in existence amongst us today. Look how many of you are taking your knowledge of Islam from these men and women who you think are so good because they're able to speak well. They have PhDs in Islam. They're famous. They're popular. So you think that they're calling you to the true Islam, when in reality, they're innovators, and they're taking you away from the Prophet and what he called to. The man goes on to say, "O Prophet of Allah, describe those people to us, so perhaps I'll know how to recognize them should I live to see the day when they appear. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described them. He said, they will be from our own people, and they will speak our language. In other words, these men and these women will be Arabs, and they will speak Arabic. And the companion said, well, what do you advise me to do if I should live to see this? He said, despite what these people say, despite what they are calling you to, stick to the main body of the Muslims and their leader. So I asked, what if we don't have a caliph? What if we don't have a main body? He said, then isolate yourself. Stay away from all these people and their sects, even if you have to eat the roots of a tree until death overcomes you. He was talking about the people amongst us today, our time, where there's so many good speakers. They're using the internet. They're using social platforms. They got all these online Islamic institutes. This institute, that institute, come here and we'll teach you Islam. We'll give you a certificate. We'll give you a degree in Islam. But what they're teaching contradicts what the Prophet taught. These are the people that's teaching you that it's haram. It's haram to eat the meat of the people of the book, even though Allah said you can. It's haram to eat cheese and milk because they have enzymes in them. It's haram for a woman to be beautiful. It's haram. Everything is haram. These are the people he's talking about. They're calling you to something other than what he came with. And the Prophet is telling us, should you live to see that, stay away from these people and their sects. And most of these online institutes are run by Arabs. I was telling you guys how I was finally introduced to a female imam while I was dealing with my nephew in the hospital. A female that called herself an imam came to visit, wanting to do ruqya on my nephew. And guess where she was from? She was Syrian, but she graduated from El Azhar in Egypt. And she had PhDs in Arabic, PhD in Islamic study, PhD in Quran, but she didn't know that a woman cannot be an imam. These are the people that the Prophet was talking about. They will be from us, speak our language, Arabic, but they will call you to something that's to the total opposite of what I came with. Also, we have another hadith where Ibn Masud said that the Prophet said Islam began as something strange, and it will go back to being strange as it was in the beginning. We're living in those days. Strange that we see women calling the adhan, women as imams in the masjid. Strange that on the other hand, we see men stripping women of their rights that Allah gave them. I don't have the right to spend my own money, even though Allah gave me that right. I don't have the right to own my own property, even though Allah gave me that right. I don't have the right to be beautiful, even though Allah gave me that right. I don't have the right to teach, even though Allah gave me that right. Islam began as something strange, and it will go back to being strange as it was in the beginning. And that's when the prophet said, good news. Good news. Good news for the strangers. And somebody asked, who are the strangers? And the prophet said, the strangers are those who stay away from these people, who break away from the tribalism, break away from the racism, the nationalism, and these other isms, the feminism, the masculism, and all these other isms that go against Islam, guys. So again, this hadith is already in existence. So when you find yourself living the true Islam, when you find yourself upon the way of the Prophet and his companions, and others ridicule you, others make fun of you, others go so far as to say you're going to hell because you wear makeup when Allah gave you that right. You're going to hell because you have colors on when Allah gave you that right. Think about this hadith. Good news. Hold firm to the Sunnah. Hold firm to the true Islam, and your reward will come in the hereafter. Okay? Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said another one of the signs of the last hour will be division. Division within this nation. He said the Jews split into 71 sets. My nation will divide into 73. He said the Jews split into 71 sets. One will enter paradise and the other 70 will enter hell. The Christians split into 72 sets. 71 will enter hell and one will enter paradise. By him in whose hand is my soul, my people will divide into 73 sets. One will enter paradise and the other 72 will enter hell. And when he said this, one of his companions asked, who will the one that enters paradise be? And he said, the ones that stick to my way and the way of my companions. Does everybody understand that? So most of these Muslims that we see today sitting up on the internet telling you that they're calling to Islam, most of them are calling you away from Islam. They're calling you to something different. And most of them will end up in a hellfire as a result, and you too for following them. That's why we have to understand seeking the correct knowledge and understanding of Islam is an obligation upon all Muslims, male and female. Every Muslim should have a teacher. I should be able to ask each and every one of you, who is your teacher, and you give me a name. We have to learn this deen, and the deen is not based on fatwa from Islam Q&A. The deen is based on only two sources, the Quran and the authentic hadith of the Prophet. And if something is confusing for us, we don't look to see what a fatwa says. We look to see what the understanding of those companions were. Anyone who deviates away from that will be of the groups that will enter into the hellfire. Also, we have another hadith where another companion says, I will tell you a hadith which I heard from the Prophet, and no one will be able to tell it to you after me. I heard the Prophet say amongst the signs of the last hour will be the disappearance of knowledge and the appearance of ignorance. Also, adultery will be widespread and the drinking of wine will be common. We're living in those days. Muslims today, most of them are so uneducated. Most of them are so ignorant that they think, they believe that if you get married, just having sexual relations will cause Allah to send half the knowledge of Islam into your head. That's how ignorant Muslims are today. They actually believe that by marrying, just because I got sex, now Allah just opened up all half the knowledge of Islam to me. That's not what that hadith means. But that's how ignorant we are. We are an ignorant ummah. And look around. Adultery. Look how many Muslims are living as adulterers. Look how many men and women call themselves Muslims and they're living together and they're not married. This is a form of adultery too. And look how many Muslims we have are addicted to marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes. It's common to smoke cigarettes. It's common to do drugs. These are the signs that are amongst us now. And also, the prophet said the number of men will decrease and the number of women will increase until 50 women will be looked after by one man. The masjids are filled with single Muslim women, and they are converts to Islam. And the imam is the guardian. He has to try to find a husband for over 50, 60 women. So this is already in effect. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said before the last hour, there will be days in which knowledge will disappear, ignorance will appear, and there'll be a lot of murder. Every 5 seconds, somebody is killed. Murder is prevalent amongst us. So these days here that the prophet spoke about are the days of fitan that we are encountering today. He also said Islam will become worn out like clothes are until there will be no one who knows about fasting, prayer, charity, and the other rituals. That's happening too. Most Muslims today cannot tell me what the pillars of fasting are, what the pillars of the prayer are, what the pillars of the wudu are, what the pillars of aqidah are, what the pillars of al-qadr are. Most Muslims can't answer these simple questions. So these days are upon us too. Also, he said the Quran will disappear in one night. No ayat will be left on earth. What that means is everyone will forget the meaning of the Quran. The people on earth will not be living in accordance to the meaning of the Quran. He said it'll be so bad that the old people will be left who will say, we heard our father say La ilaha illallah. So that's why we say it, but they won't know what it means. They won't know what it means. So these are all some of the signs of fitan that the Prophet ﷺ shared with the companions. The fitan that will happen before the last hour occurs. All of these things I mentioned are happening now, today. So we've already gotten past these things. These things are going on now as we speak. And since we know that, the question is, what are you doing? What are you doing to protect yourself? What measures, what steps are you taking to safeguard your religion so that you can become one of those strangers and not be one of the people who has fallen into these sinful beliefs? Okay, I'm going to stop right here for today.